Burning Man fits within a larger framework of what's called transformational festivals or evolutionary culture. The Burning Man experience itself, people don't like to refer to it as a festival because it's actually not a festival. It's kind of a hybrid of festival, gathering. It's a city, and that's what a lot of people sometimes will miss. It's actually a city. We have streets. We have, my goodness, we have competing newspapers. When you arrive at Burning Man, you receive a map, and this is the map for this year. And this year we had 67,000, I think was the number. So, it's not just simply a festival in the sense of a music event where people come and listen to music. There are so many other things that are transpiring. In terms of its broader historical cultural footprint, Burning Man fits within that countercultural movement that begins in the late 1960s, mid 1960s to late 1960s, emerges out of San Francisco when Larry Harvey, the man who founded Burning Man, began the event. It started off as, you could call it an accidental event. It started off in 1986 with him, a handful of buddies, going down to Baker Beach in San Francisco, knocking together an 8-foot wooden effigy. That was during the summer solstice. They threw a bunch of gas on it at the solstice, lit it up, had some beers. That's it. Maybe a couple dozen people ended up coming and seeing it. People just wandering along the beach. But it felt right. It felt special. And that's kind of how it's described. It feels like a ritual. And so they do it again the following year, and more people show up. In the meantime, an underground guerrilla art movement called the Cacophony Society in San Francisco catches wind of this event, because now it's happened 2 or 3 times on the beach during the solstice. And so word spreads that there's this crazy effigy burn on the beach in San Francisco. And by 1990, some 800 people show up. It's just, there's no tickets. It's not an event in a sanctioned sense. And the police show up. The cops show up. And they say, you can't burn anything because you don't have a permit, because we live in the bureaucratic age. Permits are more important than what's actually taking place. And so they had to take the man and move him off the beach. And Cacophony said, look, we know a spot way out in the desert of northern Nevada where nobody's going to bother us. And we'll head that direction, and we'll set this up as what they called a zone trip. And so they put a line across the sand, and basically it's kind of a famous legend that goes with it. They drew a line across the sand and said basically everything on this side of the line is changed. It's a new reality. It's a different way of thinking, a different way of acting. And I think 1990 in the desert, I can't remember the numbers, maybe 900 to 1,000 people. I'd have to look up the numbers again. But by 1995, 1996, you have 10,000 people showing up. By the year 2000, you have the first temple constructed. This has caught the attention, and it caught the attention very early on of the San Francisco tech scene. So you have Silicon Valley's interest. In fact, in 1998, when Google becomes an incorporated company, Larry Page and the rest of the team, they've been going to Burning Man. And so their very first Google Doodle in 1998 was the Burning Man symbol. And it was their way of saying to Silicon Valley, we're burners, and that's where we're going to be, is at Burning Man. While their corporate lawyers were drafting up the final papers for their company. So important was Burning Man and Google's relationship that when Eric Schmidt became CEO of Google, turning it into literally the most important company in the world, the information giant we know, and all the power behind it, the reason that Eric Schmidt's resume floated to the top was that he had Burning Man on his resume. So there's a really interesting link between the tech sector and Burning Man. But this shouldn't come as a surprise because counterculturally, from the countercultural perspective, there's a deep, deep connection between the world of the World Wide Web, the internet, the computer industry, and the counterculture from the 1960s and 70s. Stuart Brand, who used to be a part of Ken Kesey's merry band of pranksters in the late 1960s, mid to late 1960s, was the one who developed what was called the Whole Earth Catalog. And the Whole Earth Catalog was kind of it was literally just a print catalog of services and options and products that were kind of alternative and fringy and kind of behind the scenes for the countercultural community. And in a sense, that becomes an analog to the World Wide Web. And in fact, there's been a lot of references made to the importance of Stuart Brand's work in those early days to kind of bring about this mindset of access to diverse information in a unique kind of non-centralized way. And so there's all these interactions, these ties together between Burning Man and Silicon Valley. But in terms of that broader perspective, there's hundreds of these events around the world. Many of them not associated with Burning Man, though Burning Man has over 100 regional events worldwide. There's regional events in Canada, regional burns. Israel has an event called Mid-Burn, where they burn an effigy of Adam and Eve. South Africa has the largest regional burn event. China has a burn. Australia has burns. And then it has spun off literally hundreds, thousands of events that are similar in nature and that they are considered to be transformational. In fact, during the October 7th attack by Hamas against Israel, we all know that there was an attack on a music festival, the Nova Festival. That wasn't a music festival. Yeah. It was a transformational event that was geared in mind around that same kind, those same kind of principles of spiritual, social evolution. And that one spins out of a Brazilian event that's been long running on the beaches in Brazil for I think a couple of decades already.